There is a actual reason for why papers are the shape that they are, and it's based on something called the golden mean. It's math, and it goes way back to when artists and scientists were the same people. And they discovered that rectangles built upon rectangles create spirals. And and those rectangles are particularly mystical and therefore particularly inviting to our vision. And that has developed in terms of all windows and all formats. And your format is your paper or your canvas. So I'm guessing this is about 3 by 4. And what you'll want to do to create a viewfinder is just to take that shape that is similar to in scale to your canvas and cut or tear, if you're like me, out a margin. And my students might laugh because sometimes I do it in the opposite way and come up with 2 pieces rather than one. So that you have a little viewer in which you can look at your landscape. And this is really important if you want to take part in that vision of looking at the landscape. What does it really mean to you, and what are you trying to show? What are you trying to say? If you have your viewfinder, you can try all kinds of ways. You can try what's called portrait, but I would like to call it vertical or horizontal. And so what I suggest is here on this paper that you go out into your landscape and you look for what speaks to you once you choose it. And then I want you to consider with your viewfinder, how much of that landscape do you actually need? If I bring this closer, I get more of it. If I put this further away, I get less of it. How much do I really need to express what it is I like about that landscape? And boil it down to that. And then I want you to consider, where is the sun? Because one of the most frustrating things when you're painting is what the light can do. And of course you would like to be somewhere, hopefully, not right in the sun so you don't get super hot. You don't want the sun behind you, because if the sun's behind you, it's like decreasing the depth in what's in front of you. It's it's really becoming all about hues and shapes. So you want to be kind of in a place where the sun is somewhat behind you, it's not completely behind you, and you can look out and you know that you can look around, see are there any trees or buildings. Are you going to end up having things float over you like big shadows and stuff that will get in the way of your painting? But also, of course, that can be part of the fun of landscape painting. Then I would suggest, these are the things I say here. I want you to isolate key elements in the scene and check their placement by using your viewfinder. And that means that's composition. And when you, most of you, I would imagine, have already learned about composition, but there is that rule of thirds, which also comes from the golden mean, which goes along with this particular idea of rectangles becoming a spiral. And in order to create interest, you probably want to have your focal point on one of those places where those lines join. And then once you find your focal point, then you're going to put it so that it's in one of those places. Then you want to make a note of what other elements in the landscape area that could lead the eyes towards the focal point. And obviously, if your focal point is a house, a road would lead you to the house. But there are other things, other elements that could lead you to it, and those are something bright, a collection of 3 or a number of small things, the way that a certain angle of light or shadow is happening. These are things that will work their way around in your composition, allow the eye to move around, which is really important. The eye needs to be active in a composition. Let's see, what else did I say? Okay, and then there's the psychology of the space. And so what is it that you're trying to say by the horizon line, basically? Your landscape is either going to be in the top 2/3 or in the bottom 2/3 of your canvas. And what do you think is the difference psychologically? If you're painting mostly, the landscape fills up 2/3 with a 1/3 sky, compared to the landscape takes up 1/3 with 2/3 sky.
Closer.
Okay, closer. What else? That is closer, right? It would you'd be saying I'm closer in, and you're looking more. You're more about the land, right? More about the land. And then the other way is the sky, and the sky is a huge, ginormous part of landscaping. And we're going to have somebody here that's going to talk about painting skies. And then I think that everything else here is something that you can follow without my help. I do want to suggest these things, and I hope there's one thing that I do want to explain, and that is if you put your canvas up at your eye level, and you imagine this format being like a viewfinder, and you imagine it being to the side of your canvas, the very same thing. If you can place your canvas so that your viewfinder is shown, your scene that you want is shown in here, then you can paint your scene side by side and flick your eye between the two. Just a little suggestion. So does anybody have any questions?
Pretty good. Only one little technical thing.
Okay.
The whole stack are not copies, they're blank paper.
They're what?
They're blank, so there's a bunch of people that
Oh, a lot of them are blank?
just that, like that big pile. Yeah.
Oh, well, Vera will get more for us, or somehow maybe yeah. So hit up Vera. She's the person that can get you. A lot of these came out as blank. So, a technical point, yes.
Who is missing?
That end of the room didn't get
No,
it.
they all have them here.
Okay, then there's nobody's missing.
Somehow.
But there are no more left. In case anybody would have.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, what were you going to ask?
It is. Oh yeah, I just love that. Yeah. Paint color.
A certain sense of speed and urgency when you're doing.
There is. That's an interesting point.
Because do most plein air artists go back to their studio?
Many do. Many do. So really, a lot of times what a plein air artist is doing is a study. Sometimes it's just so remarkable that it's worthy all on its own. Sometimes they begin a piece and then go out. You go, and so that, another thing that I mentioned in here was the thumbnail sketches, the sketching. Really, you paint as well as you draw. And so when you go to wherever outside, you're not losing anything by drawing. You're gaining, doing lots of sketches and stuff, and then you can then paint, and the paint can also be a notation. And a really significantly developed painting never happens out in the field, but some very nice, small, beautiful, like luscious yummies do.
So all of those famous plein air artists that you were showing, it's not that they're, because I always thought that was kind of part of it, that you're actually producing something.
It outside.
Outside.
Well,
But
Van
I
Gogh
don't see how
did.
that's possible.
He did. He painted one of those paintings that you saw in 5 hours.
So did Monet.
Monet. Mm-hmm.
Monet.
There are people that can do it. I mean, if you really stay out there and it's really your thing, And Van Gogh actually had a grid made the size of his paintings, and he would take that out too, and he'd like set that up so that because he couldn't just extrapolate.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
I think the key is that there isn't a rule. If
There
you
is
think
no.
that if you're plein air painting and you want to make your painting, you think it has more to go, there's nothing wrong with taking it into the studio. Just like there's nothing wrong with somebody
That's
saying,
right.
I do all of it plein air. It's just whatever makes your painting
That's good.
where you want it to be.
Right, totally. Completely free to, I've told you a lot of things that were giving you this little list of rules and stuff, but you can go ahead and break all of them, you know? Yes?
Well, in some plein air events, they stamp your canvas.
Yes.
And the point of that is so you can't cheat, like take it back to the motel and tweak it. But, you know, there's all kinds of rules, and if that's what they want to do, then that's what you do, because they're paying you the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And also I think in a way that's what Callie's trying to get away from this time, is that feeling, that heavy feeling of competition, so that everybody can kind of do whatever is right for them, and they don't have to worry about being suspected, I guess. Any other?
Paintings that show up here this afternoon are going to have happened outside.
Yes, they will be,
Yeah.
and some will be completed paintings and some will be studies, and I encourage people to show their work whether they believe it's finished or not, because I think it's very relevant. I do.
I'm laughing. I have a question, and I have to say that I just love your use of color, and that's what draws me to your painting.
Right.
However, you have a rule. And it's down here. It says it doesn't matter whether the overall feeling of the color in a painting is just, shouldn't try to be both. But I look at this one of the trees and I see both, and I look at yours on the back wall and I see both. And I'm a gypsy, so